So what happens here is that we go back to that index number, we try to understand what can be the impact of the third wave on the economy. So what we tend to do is that we get a general idea, we start getting into the prediction, into the intuition part zone altogether. These are some of the index which we typically keep on looking back and forth in terms of comparison. Good morning and welcome to the session 3 in Bridge course, where we are going to talk about a very interesting topic today called as the index numbers. Now, what are this index all about and why is it so important in economics? Every day, we come across some or the other form of statistics which tells us some meaning. Now, starting from the morning news where we start reading about the Bombay Stock Exchange, the National Stock Exchange, the gold index price or the multi-commodity index prices, there is something that is related to this word called as the index number. Now, what is that index? Why is it so interesting? Now, index number in statistics is a measurement of change in a variable or variables across a determined period, which means to say that over a given period of time, there would be some variation which will tend to go across again and again. So for example, today, if there is an economic policy revival talk, or there is a monetary policy that's going to be released by the RBI, or there is going to be a data that's going to be given on the production index. So there would be a variation. So basically, the index will show variation according to the news that is being told today. So it will have a relative change. Now, this word is what I want to talk about, I want to emphasize. The relative change means that change in comparison to yesterday or to a given relevant period. Now, we are not going to talk about change as in the absolute change. I'm going to talk about a variation. So, for example, if Nifty's movement was 17,250 yesterday, that is, now today we will have a movement, say 17,260. So, what I'm typically trying to talk about is that 10 points which it has gone up for today. So that's where I'm talking about a relative movement. So this relative change is subjected over a period of time. Followed by index number is expressed in percentage form. So that 10 points, I would like to say it not just absolutely 10, I would like to say 0.01%. So index will always be represented in the form of percentage. So we are not going to talk about index in terms of numbers, but we are going to talk in terms of percentage. Now, what is the importance? The importance of index numbers is that it occupies a very, very important place due to its efficiency in measuring the extent of economic changes across a stipulated period. Now, the most interesting part in index numbers is that whenever people talk about index, it might be any kind of index, a metal commodity index, or we are going to talk about the gold index price, or it's going to be about, let's say we are going to talk about any kind of chemical index, whichever factor, a banking index itself. We are interested to know about the efficiency in terms, how is the sector performing on a given day? Now, let's say that there is going to be a change in the interest rate. There is going to be a change in the lending and the borrowing rate. There would be a variation that you can see in the banking sector. Now, the banking sector or the bank nifty, the bank index will keep on moving up and down because the index variation that shows that there is some movement there. Now, that is why we always say that the index will show you the variation in the sector when compared to the other sectors that are performing on a given day in the market. So always index numbers will occupy a predominant value, a predominant position position in terms of understanding the market movement. Followed by, it also helps us to study such change effect due to the factors that cannot be measured directly. So, for example, if you want to understand what can be the impact of the third wave on the economy, especially on the production side. Now, this question cannot be answered directly. This question is not something like a quantitative formula that you can put against and get some value. But this is a question which needs to be answered on a relative measure. So what happens here is that we go back to that index number. We try to understand what can be the impact of the third wave on the economy. So what is index number actually trying to do? It's actually trying to put you in a place where it's making you understand how the value will keep changing because of the external factors affecting the economy. This is quite interesting, and I would recommend to all of you here is that whenever you come across news in the paper, in channels, or in any social media, try to connect those numbers. This index will have a greater importance. It will be even more exciting for you to see how these numbers are actually affecting our economy. Now, moving further, the characteristics of this index number. It's a special category of average for measuring numbers. So that's why I would like to say that on a relative basis where the absolute measurement cannot be undertaken. It's a relative average. So when I say this word Nifty, that means to say that National 50 Index altogether, which is very, very important for us. So when I say the top 50 stock markets that are available, or when I say the top 30 stock markets in terms of the Sensex. So it's an average. It is a collection. It is not a single value. It's not an absolute value. It's a collection of numbers that we are talking about. So index numbers will definitely have a predominant value when it starts coming to the word called as averages. Now, the second thing is that it only shows a tentative change which may or may not be directly related, but it will keep varying altogether. It's a tentative. That means it's not a permanent change. It's not going to stick on to that same number for hours and for years and for days together. It is going to be a relative movement. There is a small movement automatically. You will continuously see that the numbers are fluctuating. So moment the National Stock Exchange, the Bombay Stock Exchange, the index is open, automatically there will be variation that you will be seeing where the movement of that particular market, the movement of that particular scenarios will keep on moving or will keep on changing up and down. Followed by, it gives a general idea of the relative change. Now, you know that, let's say that the market is going to go up by 3%, 2%, 1%. So there's a relative idea. So you know how many points the market can go up, the market can fall down. So what we tend to do is that we get a general idea. We start getting into the prediction, into the intuition power zone altogether. So this makes the analyst, this makes the people generally start believing that, yes, I know a little bit about the market. I know that today the market is going to go up or it's going to go down. So what I'm trying to do here is that I'm trying to give ideas. I'm trying to give figures. I'm trying to give some values. So index number directly turns out to become some kind of an interesting factor by which people get into the intuition world, by which people get into the ideas of throwing out how things are going to move in the market today. Now, the next thing is that we're going to talk about the types of index. We'll start with the value index. Now, a value index number is formed from the ratio of aggregate value of a particular period with which the aggregate value is found with the base period. So, for example, if I have to find out the price of rice from the year 2020 versus 2021. So, what I'm going to take here is this as the base year and this as the current year. So I would be able to find out the value of rice from the base year period to that of the current year index. So the value index is utilized for inventory, sales, foreign trades, and so many other factors. So when people ask this question to you saying that what was the value of export in the year 2019 when compared to 2021. Now, people are not going to just give you one value, they're going to give you some percentage. They say that over the last 2 years, the percentage increase was 20% or 22%. So which means to say that that value index tells you what is the growth, at what levels we are seeing the export or import or the sales increased or decreased over the last period. So that's where the base period versus the current year period comes into picture. So value index will play a very, very prominent role in terms of making you understand the concept of index numbers in economics. Followed by the quantity index. Now, this is quite easy for us. Why? Because the quantity index number is used to measure the changes in volume or quantity of goods that are produced, consumed over a particular period of time. So how much is the consumption? Because this word consumption, let's say this is one of the most important word in economics, where people keep on asking you why consumption, how it has to be done, what it has to be done, and how it has to be taken. So this is one which is to be sold within the stipulated period. It shows the changes in the consumption over a given period of time. So people go through it, people start understanding this is the consumption value, this is how we have to take it. Now, for example, let's say that the industrial production itself is one of the biggest consumption index that can be talked about. So moment there is an increase in the production value, there is an increase in terms of the sales, there is an increase in terms of the growth measures, this particular quantity index is going to be used. Followed by the price index also, which is very, very important. Why? Because this is what the consumer will typically look into. A price index is used to measure how the price changes over a period of time. So in 2010, the price of wheat was, let's say, 20 rupees a kg. Now, in 2020, suppose the price of wheat has gone up to 40 rupees. So there has been a 100% change on the price. So value measurement in terms of price will be given by the price index. The consumer price index, the wholesale price index, these are some of the index which we typically keep on looking back and forth in terms of comparison. So this is something which is very, very important for us in terms of understanding the index numbers. Followed by the uses of index and statistics. This is a very, very important thing for us when it comes to economics, because without indexes, we are not going to talk numbers, and we are going to continue with this index numbers. Now, it helps in measuring changes in standard of living as well as the price level. Wage rate regulation is consistent with the changes in the price level, no doubt about it. And with the determination of price level, the wage rates will also be revised. So today, in an economy, if you are going to talk about prices, wages, economic rate of growth, or any kind of employment factor, index numbers are important because they will tell you what is the current economic situation that is going on in the country, why we need to give a revision on wages, why things have to be taken in a particular manner, and how these wages will have an impact on the growth factor altogether. So these are some of the most important factors why we press upon the factor called as index number, and we take it all together in economics. Now, we also know that when it comes to the government policies, they are also framed using the index number and the price stability inherent to the fiscal and economic period. Now, again, we need the index number, because without this index number, you will not be able to arrive at any of the data. So that is why we always say that the index number will form a very important basement for the government in terms of understanding the price stability and the different factors that are ruling in the environment. Now, with that, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all information that has been shared through this session will be of a great value and resource to you. In the upcoming session, we shall learn more about economics. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and be enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.